vibe, we shine on the light. We all over the world, chat night Africa. We all over the world, chat night Africa. Welcome to chat night, we bring you good vibe, we shine on the light. Welcome to chat night, we bring you good vibe, we shine on the light. We all over the world, chat night Africa. We all over the world, chat night Africa. Welcome to chat night, the only place that we give you good vibes. Chat night Africa. Welcome to chat night, all over the world we are shining the light. Chat night Africa. Welcome to chat night.
Welcome to this edition of Voices of Africa on Chat Night. At the time we are airing this broadcast, Africa's most populous country, Nigeria, is being rocked by street confrontations between police forces and their populations. Kenya had its turn not long ago. The common denominator, strangulating poverty and blatant, brazen, white-collar corruption. So, what's the roadmap to good governance? We are told alleviates the problems hitting citizens so hard. Democracy, right? Given the myriad of problems in Africa, are democracy and development partners or enemies? Ladies and gentlemen, that's at the core of our show today. And we invited a powerful, eloquent speaker from the West African country of Senegal. Ladies and gentlemen, join me now in welcoming the president of Grand Mouvement La Relève du Sénégal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Divine. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, having this show here at Washington, D.C. So, this is something that we will go through for the questions that you will ask, and we will try to give a specific answer to your questions. So let me send my regards to all the people watching us all around the world, in the diaspora and in Senegal particularly.
And my guest, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Mohamed Sambu. Do I pronounce your name correctly, sir?
No, this is right. This is correct.
Okay, let's jump into it. Sir, democracy has been sold by Western countries as the pathway to political and socio-economic development in Africa. Should Africans be cautious of this marketing? If yes, why? If not, why not?
I think coming to your question regarding the democracy, this is something that's going on and on. The only problem that we're having in Africa, this is we don't have in our own system. I think the democracy that you're talking about, this is the democracy that we copy from our masters colonial, I will say. So for me, the problem is our leaders. It's not the democracy on its own. It's the way that we're using it. It's the way that we acting. This is the way that, because when you see there is some countries in Africa with a democratical system that are using for the moment. I can tell two of them, which is Botswana and Tanzania. I think those countries for the moment are in the way, in the good way, I will say, for the system that using. So the problem for me is critical issues with the leadership rather than the democracy on itself.
If you say the problem is leadership, then you're part of the problem, because you are aspiring to be the president of Senegal someday. So if the problem is the leaders, then why aren't you part of the problem?
You say I cannot be part of the problem, because as at now I'm not running any country. So I'm trying for the moment with the people that I'm working with, to get the possibility and opportunities to run the country. And that's why we're having our vision, our philosophy, and to change, to transform the way of working, the way of thinking, because what happened is we have a serious issue with the educational system that we have from our colonial masters. So these things, I think, which are for me the most problematic issue that we're facing for the moment. And people like us, we get the chance to have that opportunity to learn in the developing countries, and this is where we realize that for some of the thinking or some of the way that we behave, coming from the education, I will say.
I understand you say the problem is with the leadership, but I'm going to ask you again: does democracy really serve the best interest of Africans?
If you apply that democracy in the way that the European countries is doing that, I will say no. Because for each country, they should have their own system, they should have their own culture. If you match the culture with the people that we're having in our government, I think this is something that's going to work, but this is not something happening as of now.
If you became the president of Senegal today, chances are that you have friends in Europe and the United States. You think with the exposure that they have in the democratic cultures where they are, they should man your government. Is that assessment of you correct, sir?
The thing is, you need to take into consideration all of those parts. So we are, for the moment, connecting to one country to another. We cannot, create our own system working only with what we have. So for me, it's both sides. So what we need to do is, first of all, going by priorities with our culture, what we have, what we got, and then open to what the world is expecting, what the world is needed. So this is something that we need to figure out. When we say democracy, it's a common sense. It's just common sense.
If I ask you that question, Mr. Mohamed Sambu, it's because if I take Cameroon, for example, and it's pretty much the same, you can extrapolate that to virtually all African countries. When somebody becomes head of state, he brings in people who studied in Yale, Harvard, Sorbonne, Oxford, Columbia, and so on. But when they come, what happens is they become representations of where they were. How do you walk the fine line to bring in these people with experiences, which you admit they have? How do you walk the fine line to get something, to streamline something that fits within the African domain culture when you are getting people who have experiences from America and Europe? And they think in their mind, democracy looks like or should look like where they were. How do you do that?
Yeah, again, I think this is a very interesting question that you're asking, and in terms of, I will say, adaptability and flexibility for those people. Sometimes when they're going abroad as an immigration or immigrants, they trying to copy on exactly manner, the way that the things are working, but which is not, I think, which is a problem. But people like us, like me, I get the opportunity and the chance to go from time to time, so I will say a month, and to be in bed of the culture and to see, what's making the difference. So for me, it's critical that we don't mix and we don't, just do a confusion about the developing countries, the way that, they have, because I always say this is almost now 400 years. They're having the government and they're having, the system in place. For us, it's in a building. So we are in the process, I will say. So nobody we will need to work on all of those things step by steps. So This is great. This is something that probably it is positive that we can catch from the developing countries, but not all of them, because we are not the same. As I said, we don't have the same culture. And this is something that we need to integrate in our constitution. When you see the constitution in Senegal right now, everybody knows in Senegal there is 95% of religious people. So we didn't integrate the religious, integration of implication in our political decision. This is something that, for me, or as an example, we should do.
We have somebody on the line, Reverend Father Tatambui in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Hello, Father. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please. Yeah, just speak to us as you were having a phone call with me.
Yes, right.
Good evening, sir. I know it's around evening in Cameroon. The question I have for Father Tatambui, do you hear him, Mr. Sambu?
Yes, I can hear him.
Okay. Reverend Father Tatambui in Yaoundé, Cameroon. The question I have for you is, the argument has been made by some people, political pundits, that democracy and African development are mutually exclusive. What's your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it all depends on what we make of the word democracy. If we are to understand and use the word the way good old Aristotle used it, to me, the government for the people by the people, then we are saying that the good of the state, the good of the republic, the res publica, the things of the people are to be privileged. That is why Plato himself said, only philosophers is king. Why am I saying this? You cannot in any way say that in Africa, the people don't value democracy, because everybody wants a way by which the people can participate in government. And in Africa, although most people often think of African tradition as having been monarchies, this is a false observation of African affairs. If you go deeply, there is no king, no fort in African kingdom who rules by himself. Every king has a college of elders whom he consults regularly. In fact, the king or the fort in Africa is not a person, it is an institution. And that is already an African version of democracy, which if African politics had taken on, we would have been better off. So, whichever way you use, Africa needs a democracy in which the people participate. There is one word which African politicians today seem to have completely either forgotten or vandalized. It is called Ubuntu. It is a South African philosophy which says, I am because we are. And that is the way Africa has always run itself from time immemorial. No one person has the right to manipulate or to monopolize everything of the Commonwealth. If we did this, yes, Africa and democracy will be together. If we are going by what we are seeing today, then there is a problem about democracy and Africa. I guess some people call it democracy. Right?
Yes, I'm listening to you, Father Tatambui.
So what I am saying here is that we cannot start by telling Africans that Africa and our politics are mutually exclusive. The democracy that we need is the democracy which we should have had from our culture. The basis on which all democracies are built in whatever nation is the moral rectitude. If you have people who don't have any moral rectitude, people who don't respect any moral value, you can never, ever have democrats out of it. Because democracy means that I allow the will of the majority instead of my personal will from reigning. And in many cases, the natural human instinct is self-survival. Democracy speaks in different language of let the people choose. Let those who matter choose. And I buy what pledge your deathbed, let the philosophers begin. That is those who can live by critical analysis of situations. Those who don't live by what I think or what I feel, but those who live from what is right, what is true, what is good for the people. If we took these three values, which are core to our African tradition and our African culture, then our democracy will have meaning. I think we are going to import the kind of democracy which, even in the West, is at root based on self-interest and what I can perceive for myself before others. Then no, it will not lead Africa. It will be a contrario to African culture. I stand for the fact that democracy as the rule of the people and for the people is something that Africa should endure. That it should be given an African coloring. And the African coloring is taken from our culture, where the traditional ruler was never just a ruler. The traditional ruler is primarily a high priest. They install a force. They install the king in Africa to offer sacrifices for the dead and the living dead. And because he offers this sacrifice for the people, he therefore earns what we call the divine right of king. That is why his voice and words are final. Because he doesn't take those decisions alone. He takes them with a college of elders, and everybody sees that it is for the good of everyone. So
thank you.
those who are angry,
Thank you so much, Reverend Father Tatambui in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Yes.
I would like.
Yes.
Sorry. I would like just to add something. I think he's following the same thing that I'm saying before. What we need to do is to rebuild our own democracy according to the culture that we have. This is the first thing, because when you see actually what happened, all of those leaders, we're talking about a lot of democracy, but they manipulate the constitution with, the privilege. They want to have the privileges, staying into the power for years and years. That's the problem. But if we have that kind of leaders who cares about people, who cares about resources, who cares about the welfareness, the welfare states of the country, I think this is what we need to focus on. How by now are we going to have the sorts of leaders that can put in the implementation that we need in terms of the governance and all of those areas to have a fair constitution that will represent, the willingness of our nation.
You white politician, every politician says this. It's like every couple says, "Oh, communication is good in marriage." That's the brain. That communication to marriage is like blood to your brain. Everybody knows, all the good things you're saying. But why is its implementation in Africa proving to be so challenging? You, Father Tatambui, and you're talking about tailoring democracy that fits within the context of African culture. He goes further to talk about traditional rulers, but our traditional rulers were not Democrats. They inherited the seats from their parents, and so they don't understand why anybody should be questioning the authority. So again, I'm going to ask you, does our culture in Africa, or do our cultures in Africa hurt or build democracy, given the example I've just given you, sir?
What you're saying, what you're asking again, you have to look at all of those, I can say, for Senegal, which is the country, which I really know, for the presidents that we had already, and the actual president. So talking for Senegal, we have 5 presidents, right? So 4, I will say, alternations since 1960. So, hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
I just want the focus to be you. Go ahead.
So for all of those, when you look at their profile, okay, in terms of, what their background, their education, and going back, I think there is another question, which is the colonial masters, what they have done in our country, and what they have put in place. We suffer from, the way that they are running the countries, which is not for us, which is not really open. And the most important questions that we need to ask ourselves, we don't have the right answers. So for us, again, all is about knowledge, all is about the leadership. If we hire, or if we if you are elected the people who has a really good background, and people who can match with the needs and the requirements of the population, I think this is something that we haven't done yet, because all of those presidents, for me, they are the president, at the influence of the colonial masters. And now we're having to start to see some changes. We now to see people with more, power, with more engagement, with more willingness, with more motivation to transform all of those, with the youth not coming into the politics, with different backgrounds coming into the politics. So I think that this is what could make the change.
You mentioned colonial masters, and that I'm going to take the cue from there. When I listen to lots of discussions among Africans in different fora or forums, they're talking about the wars of Africa. They are accusing former colonial masters, especially France, as being the problem, sometimes behind the scenes. Do you believe that?
It's part of true. It's part of true. I'm not going to say they are totally right, because, again, we need to ourselves, what is our responsibility in being Senegalese, being African? What role have we played into the developing our country? And when you ask that question, you will see this is something that this is missing for the moment. And what is missing is, when you take the consideration, or you do, I don't like to use that word, to compare the what happened in Africa or in Senegal or in Europe. You will see there is a lack, there is a lot of gap which is happening in terms of the resources, the human resources, and the human capital that we have, or that we have in Senegal. Just to give you, because I like facts and figures, just to give you just an example. If you take a country like Germany, it's almost 83 million of the population. Yeah. When you look at and you do some search, you will find out that this is almost at least 5% of the population that working in the science field. You take another country, which is France, or which is United States, you will have the same ratio that, for all of those people, they can work for their country. This is not what we have in Africa. In Africa, we have less and some insignificant figures, which is sometimes a joke for me. And I never heard the leaders talking about those issues, because when you have to build a country, when you have to run a country, the first thing is you need to ask yourself, who are the person ready to work with you and to run the country? If you look at the figures in Africa, it's really ridiculous in terms of percentage. How come in a poor country, how come in a developing country, you have not 1%, at least there is not 1% of people working on those areas in terms of project management, in terms of engineers, lawyers, and all of those things. And the luck is, for the moment, For all of those countries, if you take an example like the Chinese, what they have done, they send their youth to go and get some knowledge and come back to build their country. Wherever you go, even in Botswana or those countries, for example, you can see there is not such a big deal to have that kind of vision, getting more people. They're having skills, they're having, the competencies, the expertise to come and run the countries. So at the moment, this is not what we have in Senegal. And the focus will be, now we are, for myself, I can talk for myself, I belong to the third generation, which you can find out all the Senegalese all around the world, Africa, Europe, United States, they are working to the top enterprise. They are working to the top companies, industrial companies. They are participating on having, the development of all of those companies. However, if you see those people, they want sometimes to go in Africa, or they have projects, or sometimes they are involved on the cooperation to bring some of the interesting projects, which all the time fail to be executed because simply this is a political way, the politics that we have in place, they want to have privilege, they always fighting to get the power. And once they get the power, they don't want to work and they don't want to put in place, and they don't want to put ahead what is the expertise for everybody to come and run. This is the difference. And from our political party and our movement, this is what we work on, how to make the census, to have all of those people with such such backgrounds, with expertise, with competencies, and do a political and industrial political, I will say, manner to come back to set our homeland and try to work together.
You are watching Voices of Africa, and my guest today is the president of Grand Mouvement La Relève du Sénégal. That's Mr. Mohamed Sambou.
Right.
I have to say, coming from Cameroon, we look at Senegal with a lot of admiration. The day that the political transition was happening in Senegal, I think that was the pride of Africa. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye is, I think, about the same age as you. And it gives Africans the hope that young people also can take steer the ship of state to safer shores. One day you may be the president of Senegal. I hope that they'll visit you during your inauguration. But the question I'm going to ask you is, what have you identified to be priority problems in Senegal that you want to resolve? How are you going to be different from President Bassirou Diomaye Faye? He's as young as you, energetic as you, brilliant as you. How are you different from him?
Yes, very good. You're right. We can have hope because now we can see more and more young people, coming and running the country. However, for us, what is missing is things are getting too slow. The way that the government is acting right now, the critical issues and problematics that we have, we're not tackling it as of now. We're always having the good proposal. People are saying all the time, like you say, the project and the willingness to be able to do so. But we're failing to have an execution, fast execution, what we want. And for Senegal and all of those countries in Africa, there is a competition between Africa, Asia. If we say that or we don't say that, this is what's happening. So what could make the difference is to reshape all the governance. So the model that we have for us is old-fashioned, it's outdated. This is something that needs to be changed. This is something that needs to be transformed. And you cannot transform all of those organization in terms of when you see the companies, the public companies, the public services, all of the way that they are working for us. It's something that didn't change since 1960. And we are always the same people running for those same companies and the same services. This is something that we will work on with all of those people working everywhere in Senegal, I will say, in the diaspora. This is our aim, to make that census, and that we have already did, and having the maximum of people with the knowledge, the wisdom, the know-how, and how to run the project, how to get developing and analyzing all the processes at high level, identifying the root cause and all of those issues that we have in terms of water, in terms of energy, in terms of connectivity. What we need, we have serious jobs that I will say, and for me and people as at now, they don't take it seriously, that we are far behind and we need to wake up, stand up, and work with everybody. And this is the time. We have the luck. All of those countries like Chinese, they send a lot of youth, like I said before, to get all of those knowledge and come back to build their country. But right now, this is thousand and thousand people here everywhere in the diaspora. They are ready. They are ready for the background. They are ready for the project. They are running. They are ready for the cooperation. They are involved on all the institutions that having in this world. But if you see the amount of people now involving or impacting to our political, the way of the working or how we govern our country, you will see it's tiny. It's really ridiculous for us now. And I always say, when you look at the European countries, they are smart. As African, when we talk about immigration, they say all the time they are not willing to give the visa or something like that for the people they want to come to visit them, or they want to stay for some reasons. However, if you have a good background, if you have if you are expert on some things like engineers and whatever, they can give you visa and they can give you at some point some nationality. What are we doing in Africa? Are we doing the same? Are we having the political to get back all of those resources that we're having outside? The brain drain, this is something which is an issue for us, and we need to find out a definite solution for Africa.
Before I ask you the next question, I see lots of people from Senegal watching this broadcast. Mes salutations, mes frères et sœurs sénégalais, le peuple sénégalais, je vous envoie mes salutations. I am from Anglophone Cameroon, so my French isn't very good. You are watching Voices of Africa.
We love China, Africa.
Mr. Mohamed Sambou, democracy in Africa does not seem to deliver, unfortunately so. If anything, what we see is blatant corruption, tribalism, ineptitude, inertia in government places, and even war. Why aren't citizens better off without democracy? If you take, and I ask you this question, sir, if you take the military leadership of 36-year-old Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, who since seizing power has been outstanding in public service delivery, why should anybody need you people in suits and nice gandoras and so on?
You're talking about, guy
makes coup d'etats look honestly appetizing. I have to say that.
Yeah, but what happened again? This a failure. It's a failure of all of those system that we used to have in Africa. Why? Because the people, for the moment, the voice of people, which is, you need to take into consideration the voice of people. And what is the voice of people here? They want freedom. They want now to benefit from the resources. If they cannot have it with the leaders that they had, they will have to take another alternative. And what is done at the moment in Mali, this is or those countries like Niger or Burkina Faso, you can understand the frustration that coming from all of those people suffering for 60 years, and nothing has been done, I will say, to amend or to bring some of the hope in the population. And that's why we can have this kind of attitude. But I'm sure when we will build with the strong leadership in Africa, putting together our own interests, this is something that we can resolve. But we will need to have a remarkable leadership, which for the moment, not just for the privilege of a part of people taking all of those, wealth, I will say, and wealthness and all of those economy and resources and income. But if you lead by example, for example, if you are the leaders and you lead by example, you have something like a vision for your country, a vision for the Africa, and whatever the country is producing, and we have those people using it. You have those people buying it. You have those people. This will bring, I will say, trust, because what happened for the moment, we're losing trust for all of those countries, and this is why we have this disruption to those countries. But the first things that we have to do in ourselves, what I believe, is in our own country, to try the maximum possible to resolve all of those key issues, the priorities, that all of the things that we will need in terms of job, in terms of employment, in terms of, setting the processes that we need for the governance, reducing all of those charges that we have in the government. So when you don't have the trust of the people, when you don't have the trust of the people that you're leading, it's end up having a confusion. It's end up having now this kind of frustration that could lead to those military coup. But again, unfortunately, this is not something that's happening all around. When we see sometimes the media, it looks like that the things are growing, but looking at in the global way, we can be confident that those things for the military coup, it will reduce as long as we put in place, the right organization with the right leaders and with the right, awareness for what needs to be done as today. And when you look at, and we don't talk too much about the economy, and we don't represent such a big ratio for the trade in terms of international trading. So this is key questions sometimes that we don't address. Unfortunately, people are not prepared sometimes when they come to run. In Africa, we suffer from people to take the right decision for the leaders and elect the right profile according to what they see in terms of project and program.
Just hold your thought there. We have a barrister from Kigali, Rwanda. That is Barrister Isaac B.Z. Murenyi. Hello, Barrister.
Hello, Divine. Can you hear me?
I hear you. I send you greetings from Washington, D.C.
Thank you. I send you greetings from Kigali today.
Kigali is said to be one of the cleanest, if not the only cleanest city in Africa. Now, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. President Paul Kagame has been there for a very long time. He just won the election by, I think, 99%. What was the percentage of his victory?
Yeah, when you round off, it is 100%.
100%.
If you round off.
Somebody's going to say that's impossible. How does somebody win election 100%? Come on.
Yes, I think that people are born learning, and they will die when they are still learning. It is not understood by many, but it is, because he won on a coalition basis. So other political parties endorsed him, and they did that in an agreement. So it's possible now to have 100%.
You can understand why when people hear across the world, they're like, that's impossible. You can understand.
I can understand, but if they know, if other political parties just make an arrangement and they agree that they are not going to campaign, instead they immobilize, they endorse him in an agreement, and all the other their followers vote him. How come that he cannot get 100%?
There were complaints around. I heard some complaints from Rwandan opposition that the main opposition leader, I think that's a woman, was barred from running.
No, I think that is a misinformation. She's not the main opposition. She has never been in opposition. She just pretended to be in opposition. So she's on presidential pardon. She's a convict, and so she's not entitled to run for any president. But she has been in prison. By default, she's disqualified to run.
Now, the thrust of our discussion today is whether democracy is necessarily what Africans need. Some people argue that Africans need water, they need electricity, they need good healthcare systems. And so democracy, if it means screaming on television, parties screaming at each other, is not what we need. Is democracy really what Africans need?
Thank you, Divine. I think I followed the guest and I followed the father from Cameroon. And to me, to be honest, when you talk, the word democracy is synonymous to elections and political power. It is not synonymous with delivery of services and developing the entire country. It's not. So, because from the time I was born in a foreign country. In that country, I grew up looking at a democracy full of civil wars, full of military wars, and since then, my region, a number of few countries have been involved in the wars. Because of what? Because of political power. That is what everyone there is talking about: democracy, democracy, democracy. So, Divan, my take is this. I think that in Africa, we don't need democracy. We need governance. Governance, if I take governance, it will include democracy in it. But I would not wish to take an approach of democracy to embody governance, because in the present understanding of democracy, where people go to vote and elect their own leader, and that is democracy, it's not. Tell me, Divine, you have a population of maybe 65% who are typically illiterate, and these are the people who are going to vote. Do you think that their vote is really informed? No, they don't know what they are voting.
They're only
being taught how to vote, that you have to do this and this.
Maybe
we have lost.
Hello, Isaac.
Yes, please.
Maybe if I'm in Senegal and I come from the tribe of Mr. Sambo, then I vote for Mr. Sambo. That's African democracy. Go ahead. Anyway, go ahead.
So what to me, what I'm saying is what I take is this. If democracy means or continues to be understood as elections of every 5 years or every 7 years or every what, I don't need that democracy because it does not give me education for my children. It does not give me electricity, as he said. It does not give me clean water. I need governance which delivers all the basics that are essential for my living, and then thereafter I can start thinking of the so-called democracy. Let me tell you this. Something shocked me yesterday. I watched on YouTube. A lady was demonstrating how her husband abandoned her with her children, and she became poor, and she started selling households, and she was saying that when you are hungry, you are completely an idiot in mind. You cannot even think that even this item I can take it to the actual market and sell it. So she was saying that when you are hungry, you are not even thinking. So in the same way, I cannot, even myself, if I'm hungry, I cannot even think, even listen to the manifesto of a politician who is campaigning to lead me in the next 5 years. First of all, give me the basics. Once I have the basics, that is education, that is food, that is water, that's everything. Then the so-called democracy will come. We have been far behind. We have been far behind of those essentials because we have been pursuing the so-called democracy. It's time that we embark on who can deliver. If my president can deliver, I need him to stay there because I don't eat democracy. I eat what he delivers to me.
This is beautiful.
That's my take.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This challenges you. I have to tell you this, Mr. Sambu. This is a twist, a perspective to it that I wasn't waiting for it. That's a barrister Bizumuremi Isaac in the beautiful city of Kigali. This is getting really, really beautiful. Now, you know what you politicians, your friends in Cameroon, they do? During elections, they carry bags of rice and bags of smoked fish and bags of salt to the villages. Oh my. Does the same thing happen in Senegal?
Yeah, kind of. I will say
What do you do during elections time? You take bags of fish to the villages.
No. Coming into seriously. So,
okay.
Sorry, this is few things that I would like to emphasize here. You give us the opportunity to speak to people with the audience in French, in English, which is really great. But what we have done as a diagnostic on, what happened in Senegal and most of in Africa, from my point of view, we don't have still, the right people on board that can lead, that can put the country under control. Let me give you just an example. If we look at today the productivity in Senegal, it's about 20%. 20% for me, it's a disaster. And I have still now not heard about how to tackle these big issues, right? When we talk about debt, we are always finding, the easiest way to get big debts for the new government they have in 3 months. I will say 3 months, right? For almost 1,150 million in our franc as a debt is too much. Today, we cannot afford to have like a government going whenever there is a problem, there is an issue, we're going to the financial institute and we take some loan for such amount, while for the moment, what as we all know, Tokenak in the financial industry, which is I'm working on, you have the equity versus the debt. We still don't have people thinking the way of how to finance, the source of finance, an alternative way to have the source of finance for the project that we are supposed to run. We all know Senegal, for example, we have 1,500 million coming from the diaspora. This is a huge amount of money, which for the moment, which is not formalized. And when you see how the things is going on here in the industrial countries, they're putting more focus on the equity side rather than the debt, which is simply to open all the capital that we're having for our business, for our enterprises. Another thing is, first, I said before, the voice of people is something that it is missing out from our leaders. The second thing is the voice of the workers, the people that working in the public and in the private sectors. Those people need to be empowered. And the third thing that for us is the most important is the voice of the business. This is what the key things are. So the first thing will be how to get up and having, a sustainable system that could enable the shareholders, the stakeholders to participate of all the projects that can be done in Africa.
Okay, we have somebody on the line. Mr. Joseph Fomonung is on the line from Texas. Mr. Joseph Fomonung is a development expert. Hello, Mr. Joseph Fomonung.
Oh, yes, Mr. Divine. Good to hear from you.
The question raging across Africa is democracy really what Africans need? Somebody from Rwanda said, look, listen, Africans need water, they need healthcare system, they need a good healthcare system, they need roads. So you talk about democracy, what we see on CNN, people cursing each other left and right, is that what Africans need?
My response to your question is categorically and absolutely no.
But people are dying in the streets of Africa. That's what they need. They need democracy.
They are misguided. They are misguided, totally and completely misguided.
You are a development expert, Mr. Joseph Fomonung. Why is democracy not the vector for development?
The pathway to Africa's development cannot be democracy as practiced as understood in the West. Because number one, development is a political decision. Political decisions are based on economic interests. And without economic interests, economic resources or non-resources determine political decisions. And therefore, if you look at historically, Africa's underdevelopment was caused by Europe's development. And Europe's development was actually made possible because by Africa's exploitation of the physical resources, minerals, name it, and everything that powered the Industrial Revolution and powered the Europe's development as we know it today, as the G7 say. Because if you come to think of it, there's no way Africa can develop through democracy as the tenets of, as we understand the tenets of the democracy in the Western world. Because number one, I would just give a few examples. The Democratic Republic of Congo, for example, it has a population of 102 million people. But do you know that the physical resources, that is the natural resources of Congo, just the mineral resources by themselves have been estimated by all experts to be $23-24 trillion. Almost that's the size of the world's largest economy, which is the USA, with a GDP of $25 trillion. Just we're talking about one African country, the DRC. Its resources are valued at $23 trillion. Okay, but what's the per capita income of the DRC, for example? It's less than $1,500. What is the GDP of the USA, for example? You're talking about $65,000. So okay, now democracy is not the path for Africa because Africa has other options. Look at China. China in 40 years uplifted 850 million people out of poverty into the middle class income level. Their life expectancy moved from 37 years per life expectancy to 70-something years now in 40-year period. Why is Africa lag behind continuously? Because of the Africa's resources value have not been benefiting Africans because they have been taken almost for free by the G7 countries, European countries.
So Mr. Joseph Famonong, if you were president of Cameroon, probably you'd be dictator on day one, like Donald Trump said.
Well, I will not be dictator. I will not be dictator if I were president of Cameroon because it's a question of I think it's a question. If you love your people, you know, I will not be dictator. If I do comparative analysis and of development across the world. Okay, see South Korea today. South Korea, almost everything, Samsung, name it. Samsung and many refrigerators and appliances are made in South Korea. But do you know that South Korea was ruled by a military so-called dictator for many decades before, I mean, to lay the foundation for economic development before they started doing the elections in the democratic style, the Western style. Do you know that Singapore was ruled by a prime minister, Lee Kuan Yew, for so long, and then as a one, almost like a one-party state.
So you have 1 minute. You have 1 minute. Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here?
Yes, sir.
Well, my time is so limited.
I know. Development expert. You're going to talk to that kingdom come back. We don't have all the time. Yes.
Africa has to look inwards. Africa has to look inwards. Africa has to mobilize resources. Africa has to be independent and assert greater sovereignty over its natural resources and make partnerships both with the old European or Western countries, as well as forge new relationships with partners such as China, which is developed without colonies, without exploitation, and other countries. The world is big enough to have the powers, I mean, to accommodate everybody. But Africa cannot continue shedding its wealth to the West and remaining poor. And then when African children die, they leave Europe, they leave Africa and enter Europe. They call them illegal aliens and other stuff, and they die in the Mediterranean and die in the Sahara Desert. Africa has to take its own policy changes and stand its ground, just like the people of Sahel, these three leaders of the Sahel are doing, and just like the young guy in Senegal and Osman Konko and Sonko rather, and his friend
Basiru.
That's what they are doing now. So that's the route that Africa has to go.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Joseph Famonong.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. Here's the thing. It's so sad. You are a politician in Senegal, Mr. Mohamed Sambou. Someday you could be the president of Senegal. It's very likely. You're a very brilliant guy, articulate guy with a lot of ideas. It's possible you could replace, who knows, in the next few years, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. Why is it that the West continues to pillage resources of Africans. You have people who are they intelligent like you as leaders, and they're coming and taking all these things away. How do you explain that the resources of DRC is what about $23 trillion, and people are living in that country in abject poverty? It's just something not right. There's
It's
something
not.
not right.
Right, you're right. It's completely a nonsense, and this is unfortunately, and fits things that going on and on since a long time, and that's why I say, looking at what happened, all of those generations, and all the efforts the population they have done, and all of those issues and problems they're going through, we need to stand up. We need to stand up and ask to the right question again. And who are our leaders? What kind of vision they have? What sorts of resources um, they will be putting in place? And what kind of team work the task force they are around them to take under control all of those resources. We can talk a lot, Mr. Divine. If you don't have the capabilities and the resources, I will say resources, the human resources a lot, because in Africa, we have quality at the moment. We are, so in some of the countries, like in Senegal, you can find people with really background. But in terms of numbers, in terms of people that we need, the number of engineers, the number of lawyers, the number of one of my friends, one day we was chatting, and then he was telling me that apparently there is some of the doctors, more doctors in France than in Benin. So people that are for the moment in the diaspora, all of those experts, they need to go back to their homeland. If you have natural resources, and then we don't have people to take all of those resources and then develop them, transform them, building companies, having some competitive enterprises that can compete at international level, is always going to be hard, because for the moment, my view is all about knowledge, is all about wisdom, is all about know-how. If you don't have it, people will take it and they're going to run it for you. And that's what's happened as of now. For the petrol that we say, the gas, oil, the gas, and all of those things that we are, who for the moment, as a Senegalese or as a company, we have those enterprises that can for all of those natural resources, they can do it in our own, and then try to make it happen. I think it's a very few in terms of companies they can compete. Even I will say there is no companies can compete against all of those champions in the world. This is where we need to start on, and like I said before, we need to start from the scratch, and building our own system and supporting our private sectors for the companies and all of those enterprises. This is possible if we use our generosity and knowledge, and to share with all of those from ourselves in our own country, and then we spread it to our borders. And I think this is something that missing for the moment, and we hope that if we're going to be the following people that will run the country, we will work on that.
You are watching Voices of Africa, and my guest today is the president of Grand Mouvement La Relève du Sénégal, Mr. Mohamed Sambou. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be right back. My name is Divine Chamukong. I'm anchoring this broadcast from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. This show is being aired on the internet in high resolution www.chatnightafrica.net. It's also on YouTube. Search Chat Night Africa. You'll also watch it there in high resolution. It's on different places on Facebook as well. We will be receiving a call. I'm getting signals from Professor Ben Bongang, Professor of Journalism and Political Science, after this transition. And we will bring back our guest on the platform momentarily. Please stay tuned.
Welcome to Garrett Delivery Service LLC. Have you been looking for a reliable and affordable moving company? Garrett Delivery Service moves your belongings using extra safety measures. We offer customized solutions to fit all of your delivery requirements, saving you time and money. We are dedicated to providing you with safe and prompt delivery services by partnering with a network of local drivers. Feel free to call us if you need assistance with booking your delivery. Here are some of the proficient services we offer: local moving services, furniture delivery services, medicines delivery services, letters delivery services, documents delivery services, grocery delivery services, food delivery services, flowers and gifts delivery services, junk removal services, home cleanout service. Other attributes to make you hire our fascinating services. Operational since 2019, 24/7 availability, timely delivery, trusted partnership with local movers. We value your time, maximum customer satisfaction, reasonable rates. Get in touch to book your delivery.
I have used the services of Garrett Delivery Services, and they're simply outstanding. I will be bringing up, Professor Ben Bongang's on the line now. Hello.
Yes, Divide.
Yes, good afternoon. You are live on Chat Night Africa. My guest, the president of Grand Mouvement La Relève du Sénégal, Mr. Mohamed Sambou, is listening to you. Ben Bongang, you are professor of journalism and political science here in the United States, and you are of Cameroonian descent. The question is, are democracy and development mutually exclusive? Is democracy what Africans really need? Somebody argued from Kigali, Rwanda moments ago, that's not what we need.
I think we get hung up on the terminology, democracy. I think earlier that Reverend Tatambu had been talking about what I would call traditional African democracy. If democracy is a focus on the people, and the people understanding that when they live within a political entity, call it a state, a country, or whatever, they are entitled to the resources of that state. So the challenge, therefore, is, in my opinion, whether you call it democracy, socialism, dictatorship, it should be about how is power shared in such ways that the resources of that country are equitably distributed. So the challenge for Africa today is that, as someone has said earlier on the show, is that we inherited blindly what we thought was the Western way of running the show. But most of the leaders who came after the colonial period, I think, failed to realize that the Europeans in Africa were not there to teach Africans how to rule their countries well. They came to exploit, and that's what they did. So coming back to the fundamental question of our discussion, therefore, we ask ourselves, in what ways, therefore, can Africa today organize itself so that whatever you call it, democracy, if it is government for the people, by the people, so that the people be aware of what their role is and how to select the leaders who should make that happen. So there is what political scientists call political culture. And for a country to function, we should be able to identify and speak of its political culture, meaning how do the people see themselves within their country? What should they expect of their leadership? What should they expect of the institutions? that are created to make things happen. Let me point to a couple of things. If in a political culture, we know that there are institutions that have been created to check power. Why check power? Because power is a very seductive thing. Every human being wants power, and when you have it, you don't want to let it go. So any country must figure out how is power going to be distributed. If you decide, like most countries do, to say we are going to have an institution called the executive, another institution called the legislature, where citizens elect people, and if we have, like in the United States, also a judiciary, then the first thing is, how is power going to be shared among these institutions? And can they effectively check each other? We have seen from the example of the United States and others that it is not very easy to do because, again, power is so alluring, it is so seductive, and those who have it don't want to let it go. But others have talked earlier about the importance for Africa to develop economically. And that is true. We should be able to have clean water, then we should have good health, we should send children to schools, we should have the infrastructure that makes that happen. Businesses should be able to function. People should feel safe where they belong. But when you look across the continent today, you see that that is not happening. And the reason is simple, because those who have ended up in power have either seized power by creating structures that concentrated power either in an executive that claimed to represent the people, or in some soldiers who, because they handle the guns, now take power for themselves. So for Africa to move forward, I would suggest, let us see what we can take from the lessons of what I would call African traditional democracy, if you want. If you look at the kingdoms, I think Reverend Tatambu had hinted to that. The kingdoms of some of our in our countries, I come from, so in Cameroon, Northwest Province, the Bali, Divine, and some of the northern Cameroon kingdoms, as well as the Bambi kingdoms, have structures. I think earlier you had talked of them as monarchies, but when you look carefully, you saw that within them they had checks and balances. So, for instance, we have the Mwerong, the Ngiri structures within the palace, which suggested what the fount of So is not an autocrat. Therefore, he cannot do whatever he wants because the Mwerong can discipline him. So those are the kinds of things we should be thinking about going forward.
Professor Ben Bongang,
how to organize ourselves.
Professor Ben Bongang, if you were from Senegal and assume this guy on the screen became president, he probably would be looking across the United States to pick you up, to bring you to Senegal to become maybe Minister of Communication. The point I'm making, Professor Ben Bongang, is the people who are running down African countries were once in the West like you are today, educated as you are today. So when they went back home to serve their countries, what went wrong?
Let me say that if I were taken to one of the countries today, I may not be better than those who are there now, because fundamentally the structures are not there for that. What do I mean? A political culture takes a while to be developed. It means that instead of people thinking that I'm going to bring glory only to them, they should be looking to me as somebody who represents all of Cameroon or all of the people rather than where I come from. Therefore, but how could that happen? That can only happen if we've created the institutions that we as people respect. That the executive is not there forever, and once it is past its time, it should go. But that does not happen automatically. That happens because you've developed a political culture that does that. It's not because we come like from the diaspora or from elsewhere and think that the magical thinking we are bringing is going to solve the problems. No.
Dr.
The
Benbongang,
fundamental problems
yes,
have to be created. Yeah.
I'm going to have you ask a question to the president of Grand Mouvement, La Relève du Sénégal. Benbongang, you ask him a question. You are a journalist before being a professor.
Mr. President, it's an honor. And I hope as Divine is wishing you good luck, one of these days we might call you president too.
Thank you.
What is first of all, I must admire Senegal because for those of us who are old enough to remember Leopold Sédar Senghor, he was one of the few African leaders who showed that living power is a normal thing and it's something that should be done. Now that you are running a political movement, I've heard a lot of your really clear thinking, and I admire you for that. What would you say that Senegal could do today with its new leadership that will make it stand out and be the model for other Africans to emulate, to copy, as it were?
Thank you, Dr. Benbonga.
Very good question, Mr. Ben. Before going to respond to your question, I just would like to add a contribution, if you allow me, Mr. Divine, to do so.
Yes, please.
Your question is very important when you say most of the people sometimes they have Western education, and when they're coming to the homeland, it is not possible maybe to act or to represent, what they have in terms of knowledge. You need to take into consideration one thing: being the leaders or being part of a project or a team is not the same. You're right. Most of the people for the moment, sometimes in Africa, in Senegal or other countries, they are, calling people from from the diaspora to come and participate. Participate, that means there is already a system which is, for the moment, from my point of view, is outdated. If you try, you cannot change things from the bottom to the top. You need to change things from the top to the bottom. As the leaders, if you have the vision, if you know the way that you will seek, or the way that you will take to put all of those vision and into a project or a program with people, with resources, this is clearly different. And this is not happening as of now. I didn't see people, I will say, from our generation, not the old generation, again, the new generation, I will say, the third generation, that having this kind of ambition, which is now to just now give an answer to Mr. Ben for his question. Senegal could be a model, right? Because we have, like I said before, 5 presidents in 60 years. In Africa, we have a steady country, and it's peaceful. And in terms of energy, facilities, infrastructure, there are already something that has been already done. So the next thing is how can we create a model? And the model that we have to do, for me, is to reshape the governance by organizing, the existing model with modern management style, to streamline the processes at high level to secure successful outcome. This is what, from my point of view, not done yet. So if you look at the way that the government is working as of now, is simply there is no change. We say that we always heard about news, things can be done with all the transformation. However, when you look at the background of those people that are running, the companies, or that are running in the institution, we will see this is always the same system. In terms of organization, this is 4 pillars that in our political movement that we care, which is All is about the method that you use, the organization, the transparency, and the performance. And all of those things, if you look at and you try to analyze in financial point of view, how those bodies and those companies and those enterprises is working, you will see that there is no such optimization in the way as efficiency to get the results, even for the public and the services.
Please
So,
hold your thought right there. We have Father Tata Mbui again from Yaoundé, Cameroon. Father Tata has so much to say today. Hello, Father Tata Mbui.
Yes, divine.
Very good. I'm going to ask you a pointed question. Somebody called in from Rwanda, a lawyer from Rwanda said, what Africans need isn't democracy. We need water. We need good healthcare systems. We need good roads. So who cares about people coming on television and cussing out each other? 300 and something political parties like in Senegal and Cameroon. Cameroon has 368. I thought Cameroon was the only one in Africa until I asked my guest. How many political parties do you have, sir? 300?
There are over 300, definitely.
No, I'm asking Mr. Sambu. Mr.
yes,
Sambu,
it is at least.
At least 300.
Yes.
So, Father Tata Mbui, somebody's going to say that it's not what we need. Captain Ibrahim Traore seized power in Burkina Faso and is doing way better than these guys who come in suits, three-piece suits. So who cares?
Yeah, as I said, divine. Our problem is usage of words and what they mean. This is where our problem is. We are using one word and doing something else.
Yes.
We call democracy, we practice a demon that is crazy. If we were actually democratic, we would be democratic the way Aristotle meant, and no lawyer, no person on earth can say that what Aristotle meant was not the best. That is the government of the people, for the people, by the people. That is the idea.
Yep.
That is what Aristotle meant. If we mean by democracy something else, then of course the lawyer is right. That what we are looking for are powerful figures who like their people and help them develop. Whether they are democratic or not, we are looking for people to have that. But that is because we have misunderstood the word of democracy and we are practicing something else instead of democracy. I still repeat, if democracy is understood the way it should be understood, there is no way anybody can contradict the fact that that is not the best way of running affairs in the world, where the res publica, where the things of the public are taken consideration and the common good is paramount.
Reverend Father Tata Mbui, does it disappoint you that when you look around African cities, you have people in leadership, people who were once in Europe and the United States, graduated from Yale, Harvard, Sorbonne, Oxford, and so on, manning those countries, and yet they can't even clean the streets. The streets are looking like pigsties. Where's the disconnect? What went wrong? These people came from democratic cultures, but just became something else when they occupied positions of power in Africa.
There's one thing studying, and there's another thing being educated. You can go through a school, and a school never goes through you. We have got many people who have got paper qualifications, but those paper qualifications don't translate into actually what they should know and what they should produce. A genuine academic, a genuine intellectual does what he knows, lives what he is supposed to live. But unfortunately, we have 4 different problems that Africa faces. Number one is we have still to make a distinction between authority and power. In Africa, we are far too much into power, not into authority. That's the very first problem of Africa. Secondly, Africa has yet to convince itself and convince the world that it is truly independent. We are still far too dependent. And therefore, we cannot talk of controlling our own affairs. So most of our leaders are teleguided. Thirdly, the problem we have in Africa is a good number of those who are in charge have no root in their culture. A good number are what are called hybrids. And once you are hybrid, you lose trend of the basic African culture of Ubuntu. I am because we are. In Africa, that is the truth of the matter. That's where we live. You cannot live as a monarch, as a loner. In Africa, you cannot do things only for yourself. Precisely because most of these, what the Algerian writer used to call the evolué of Africa, Frank Fanon, he calls them the evolué of Africa. Those who have not grown in Africa, who don't have their feet in Africa, lack the basis of our culture, which is concern for one another. And the last thing of Africa is in the attempt to want to also be modern, whatever we put on that word modern, a good number of our people want to live beyond their needs and forget that when I am in a village, I cannot live as if I'm in a town. They have seen things happen over there, but they come here, and one of those things still remain in our minds. I want to be the only person who said, I've lived in the beautiful streets of New York, in the beautiful streets of London, in the beautiful streets of Tokyo. So that if you make your own place like Tokyo, like London, there will be no need of people going there. I think there is still this kind of rather weird way of reasoning that makes us not deliver what we should deliver.
Wow, Father Tatambwe, look, listen, when I listen to this Reverend Father, I don't know how many books of philosophy, psychology, sociology you guys read.
It's a very good point.
I got the line from you, demons gone crazy, not democracy.
Yeah, that is, well, we call it a democracy, but it's a democracy.
Father Tatambwe, before I let you go, just answer this question in 30 seconds. Nigerians, there are street combats in Nigeria between the police forces and the population. Nigeria is a federation since independence. Cameroon, the debate here is whether it should be a federation or not. Federation is not helping Nigeria. What's your reaction to that?
That is a fallacy of non sequitur. Because it happened in Nigeria, therefore it will not happen in Cameroon. I don't think we can follow that kind of way.
Okay.
Each country is unique.
Beautiful. That's Reverend Father Tatambwe, live from Yaoundé, Cameroon. All right. Now, Father Tatambwe talked about true independence. Mr. Joe Famunong also talked about true independence. Is it possible that before actually Professor Edo is actually saying he has another engagement, he has to come on. Just please be patient. Let me bring in his contribution, and we continue the conversation. Yeah, just hang on. Hello, okay. Professor Edu Abegana of Togo, correct?
Yes.
Yes, please. Could you turn off any other listening device where you are?
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. You are a professor of political science of Togolese descent. You've heard this debate. Is democracy really what Africans need? If you look at Captain Traore in Burkina Faso, the populations around Africa are going to say, look, who really cares whether there are elections or not? Every 5 years or 7 years, who really cares? This guy came in by coup d'etat and is serving people. That's what people need.
Yes. Thank you for giving this opportunity. You're right. Ibrahim Traore came to power via military coup, but that coup was the will of the people. The will of people to establish institutions that can share resources that they are not profiting from. So they can be military men, but can be later on transformed into a democrat if he is able to address the need of people, the thirst of people to establish those institutions that were lacking. First of all, let me go straight to your question. Is democracy what Africa really need? Yeah. That question is a good question. And if we define democracy as a form of government, Africa needs a form of government. Whether it's authoritarian, autocracy, dictatorship, kingdom, and so on and so forth, it needs a form of government. As far as I'm concerned, since 1960, where we quote unquote become independent, only few years of experience of democracy was transformed into coup and quote unquote in one-party system, which is almost a kingdom. So, except for few countries like Senegal and Botswana and others, almost 11 countries, according to the Freedom House, Africa does not or did not experience democracy per se. One of the contributors said that we say that we are democracy, but we are doing something different. The guest speaker said that leadership is what is needed rather than democracy, and that we copied Western democracy. I want to challenge him a little.
Sure, go ahead.
Africa, our leaders does not copy democracy. If they copy it, we are going to see something different than what they are doing. They copy democracy. They are traveling all the time. They see roads built in the West countries. But what are they doing at home? Nothing. They see how democracy functions abroad in those West countries. What are they doing at home? Nothing. For now, leadership is lacking. I want to add transformational leadership. A leader who is at the service of people is lacking. African leaders, what they care about is about accumulating of self-worth, like accumulating wealth for themselves, their cronies, their families. That leads to greed.
But Professor Abigano, the day,
yes.
Hold on, the day you are referring to are people who once were here teaching, professors from institutions, leading institutions in the West. So when they went back to Africa, I'm going to ask you the question again. What went wrong? The day didn't drop from the skies.
Dr. Bongeng already answered that question. Said that the institutions are lacking, the system are lacking. Whether someone is brilliant in the West, study all those theories and practices and so on and so forth, went back, the system is not there it's not right for them to use their knowledge, to apply their knowledge. The system, they do exactly what the system required. And the guest speaker said that one of the main problems for Africa has been the lack of a total independence, both political and economic, because of colonialism. Those colonial masters are there to protect their interests. Because they are there to protect their interests, they don't care what kind of leaders are there. As long as those leaders are willing to do their will, they will keep them.
In 1 minute, how do we go from here? In 1 minute, how do we go from here, sir?
We start changing already. You mentioned Burkina Faso, you mentioned what you call it, Mali, you mentioned Niger. People are now taking the matter in their own hand to make sure that we get a total independent from those colonial masters in order to put institutions in place so that we can go about development. First of all, some of the contributors confuse development and democracy. Democracy and development are two different things. It's a chicken and egg issue. We don't know
which one
comes first, which one comes last. So when we're talking about electricity and education and all those, now we are in the realm of development. When we are talking about democracy, we are talking about the form of government. And democracy needs some preconditions. Those preconditions, the lack of systemic corruption, the respect and promotion of human rights, and the rule of law. So far, across African countries, we are lacking all those. The literacy rate is very low, and so on and so forth. We are not allowing a peaceful transfer of power, and so on and so forth, except for Senegal, who forcefully did it twice already.
All right.
And so on and so forth. So leaders must be at the service of their people. We have to have a way of sharing and checks and balances, and so on and so forth. Those will help prepare the ground for development. Other than that, we cannot talk about development without having leaders who will understand that they are the service of the people, and the people are the one to run the government, and so on and so forth. That's what we need. So colonialism needs to go down. Military occupation of foreign countries need to go, because we cannot talk about democracy while we have a military occupation by foreign countries and so on, and bases by foreign countries and so on and so forth. Do you see any African countries based in France, in the United States, in the UK? We don't have that.
You have the reverse.
All that we cannot talk about development. So foreign leaders, the Westerners, if they make trouble in those countries, is where they can steal the resources. They know for far that if our leaders are true democratic leaders, they cannot extract our resources. They cannot steal our resources. That's why they are putting trouble in those parts so that they can extract resources. When France was called to live in Niger, are they not crying? When those Western countries are asked to live the Sahel region, are they not crying?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You're
welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That's Professor Edo Abigano of Togolese descent.
Sorry, Mr. Divine.
He raises some questions, very pertinent questions there, sir.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you, independence. Is there a political price to pay if African countries were to break away from their former colonial masters? And I'm actually referring to African countries of sub-Saharan Africa.
We have already paid the price. We have already paid the price, and I'm sorry to come back again for the person that was saying. Just to be clear, I think there is a misunderstanding. I'm saying what we need in Africa, in Senegal, is a strong leadership, and I don't say that we need to copy the Western democracy. No, I say completely the opposite. What we need is to build our own. And the term democracy, as we always focus on that term, but for me, it's not the issue. The issue is, like I said, for the voice of people, what we need, what is our expectation, how are we going to build an organization or a government that will reflect all of the parts of our society. This is the challenge for us. But what the problem is for the moment is we're having leaders that copying the Western democracy, which is a problem, and they manipulate the population to stay longer in the power. This is why we're having all of those issues somewhere in Africa. But whatever we can do as a matter of organization, we need to choose a system that could, prevent all of those big issues and for the country.
I'm going to, yeah, go ahead, sir.
So another thing that you said, and for Mr. Fada, if I
Father Tatambui.
Yeah, if I remember his name, he's absolutely right. We always, even if you came from the diaspora having a degree, sometimes we think that those people, they have the knowledge that could run the companies or the project. No, we need to look at the profile. This is where this is really important about the background. What we need in Africa, especially in Senegal for the moment, is the technical profile with experience and background that has been involved, all of those in project, in industries. And this is not what's happening. When you look at the all of those profiles that running the public sectors or the public services, they're coming from, I don't know, the National Administration School, which are more or less, I will say, literature driven, and the lawyers are running most of the companies. And for me, it's a problem. This is now the way to change how we hire all of those persons and people that will be taken to control all of those companies.
We have a similar institution in Cameroon called ENAM, where civil administrators are trained. I think that was a French a hand down from the French from the French system of doing things, because we have the same thing in Cameroon. And guess what? A lot of people who graduated from those schools are the people running down the economy of Cameroon, corrupt, and so a lot of them.
That's the problem.
What would you do if you became the president of Senegal, and there's a high probability you could replace Bassirou Diomaye Faye? What would you do with that institution?
I'm going to completely remodernize it, because, like I said, since the 1960s, they all working in the same way in terms of performance, in terms of efficiency, how to get innovation, the creativity that we need for those institutions, for those. That's where we are lacking. That's where we are having the problems, because when you ask them, what are you doing to change things or to transform the way that is working? They always say it's working like that since a while, so we don't have to change it. Even for the President Macron in France, he said so. He said in France, most of those leaders, they're coming from those schools, which is now outdated. We need to modernize those kind of schools and bringing more management and change management, I will say, skills. So the soft skills for the moment, this is what making the difference everywhere in the world. Me, I have the opportunity to work in Belgium. I have the opportunity to work in London, in UK, in United Kingdom. I have the opportunity to work in Luxembourg, in international companies. But all of those, in terms of project, in terms of direction, in terms of results, the outcome, what is making the difference is how you get into control in an efficient manners all of those activities that the company is running. So this is where we're having such issues. I had make some contacts with those guys leading the public sectors, but when you ask them the way that they are working, you will be mad. The thing is, you see that where the problem is in terms of charges. We don't question and we don't challenge the processes that we have, which need seriously in a deep manner how to resolve the cost efficiency. This is when I'm talking about Senegal, 1/3 is coming for all of the charges of the government, which not represent 1% of our income. This is crazy.
We will be right back. I have an important question for you. That question is sort of radioactive in Africa. I will ask you that question, 2 questions before we close the show today. Time for us to have a little break from Gerek.
Welcome to Gerek Delivery Service LLC. Have you been looking for a reliable and affordable moving company? Gerek Delivery Service moves your belongings using extra safety measures. We offer customized solutions to fit all of your delivery requirements, saving you time and money. We are dedicated to providing you with safe and prompt delivery services by partnering with a network of local drivers. Feel free to call us if you need assistance with booking your delivery. Here are some of the proficient services we offer: local moving services, furniture delivery services, medicines delivery services, letters delivery services, documents delivery services, grocery delivery services, food delivery services, flowers and gifts delivery services, junk removal services, home cleanout service. Other attributes to make you hire our fascinating services. Operational since 2019, 24/7 availability, timely delivery, trusted partnership with local movers. We value your time, maximum customer satisfaction, reasonable rates. Get in touch to book your delivery.
Very good. Thank you, Garek. I have used your services, and you guys are formidable, phenomenal in your services, customer services. Ladies and gentlemen, I have two last questions for our guests before we close the show today. Our guest is Mr. Mohamed Sambu. Mr. Sambu, this question around Africa is it's thorny, it's radioactive, but I'm going to ask you. The debate has been raging in the United States whether someone isn't too old to run for president. That debate seems to reverberate across Africa. The leaders of Nigeria, Cameroon, Liberia, and a few others immediately come to mind. Do you think that the debate, as radioactive as it is, has its place in Africa?
Obviously, I will say it's obvious. It's obvious because previously I will mention that you mentioned that the actual president is, we belong to the same generation. So when we say same generation, it means a lot. It means a lot. It means how things are moving, and it means in terms of how to incorporate all of those needs again in terms of expectation and the results and the outcome that we want. So we need to be aware, and what we compare is Europe or the Western countries is completely different to the African countries. The European countries, they last longer. I think it was a while now, I say more over almost 300-400 years, they are still on democracy, on whatever you can call them. But when you look at Africa, most of the way of working, it's manual. So the system is not robust yet. When you look at the United States, and I will say they have strong institution, everything is there. So when you have to run those kind of countries, probably your efforts will not be much, or I will say, this is how I can say that. However, if there is for Africa or if there is for Senegal, there is a lot of things needs to be done. You need the resources, you need the materials, you need everything that can be done to streamline all of those processes that not happen yet. I heard for the new government, there was a debate on the number of ministry they have to nominate it. So they say they're gonna reduce the number of ministry because they want to standardize, they want to harmonize, and they want to, in terms of costs, reduce the costs. But I think it's a wrong debate. You cannot reduce the size of the government while you don't have the strong processes. Everything is manual and everything is concentrated in the capital city in Dakar, which is 0.3% of 5 million people living there. So you have almost 14 regions that depend on one region for the whole things that needs to be done in terms of administrative, in terms of finance, in terms of everything. So the level, I will say, of our process is really immature for the moment. This is where we need to focus on and to make the digitalization on for all of those area, all of those stage that needs to be done. This is the first thing. If you set and you solve that issue, then you can reduce the size because things can go faster, and then the decision and all of those action that can be done in a quick way.
My last question on the broadcast today, Mr. Sambou. Presidential term limits in Senegal, like in other places where you have presidential term limits, are dismissed by others as anti-democratic. The argument being that, well, if people like their leaders, they can keep electing, re-electing. If you became the president of Senegal, and I keep saying there's a strong chance you can be, are you in favor of limitless terms or term limits for the presidency?
Again, this is, the influence of, I will say, from my mind, from my point of view, this is an influence coming again from the Western Europe, because in Africa, when you want to run a project or a country, you cannot do that in 5 years, even in 10 years. It needs generation and generation. The most powerful countries here, when you see the model that they are using, it's steady model where there is no disruption and there is no change. I will take an example out of Luxembourg, which is a country where I'm living right now. That country is the most steady country in the world, and this is the wealthiest countries in the world right now, and this is the tiny country in the world. So when you look at the contrast, which is 600,000 people as a population, right? And they are the most powerful countries because why? Anything like a political aspect, they put it down. So they just focus on the strategic field, which is economy, which is the health and the education, where they admit they don't do politics on those fields. So if you take an example in Africa, now we're having 5 years term. So the 5 years term, that means by the time you get on, you put in place your team, and the constraints that you will have with the challenge that you will have to change all of those, I will say, law which is not appropriate, and you need to have the majority on the parliament to be able to do the changes in a fast way. So if I was the president, when we say what I'm going to be doing, we have changed the constitution so much. And like I said, we are lucky to have a steady country. And I believe to respect the constitution and not changing it. But what we need to do is having an operate government with strong people that can work to get results in the quickest way. This is the only way, I think, for the moment that we can do, and acting and making the focus on the number of people that we need, the quality of resources that we need, and all of those people that will be embedded to those programs and those projects. I think it is possible. It is possible when you look at all of those profiles all around the world, like I said, but the right profile, not just the degrees, but people who are involved on international level, building industries, creating jobs, having opportunities. I'm not saying just people working on the companies, but there are people working on projects with the corporation everywhere, in the United States, in Asia, in Morocco, everywhere. So all of those, if you make the census, and then with that strong leadership and the management and the modern management style, I think everything can be done, and then in 5 years. And this is where sometimes, sorry, just to continue on that, this is, if you work, if you concentrate on the focus, just to work and to get results, I think the people will be able to give you a second term, which is for the moment sufficient to do what you want to do.
And we will be right back, sir. I will come back to meet you to ask for your closing remarks. You are watching Voices of Africa. My name is Divine Chamakong. I'm anchoring this broadcast from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
Keep watching Chat Night Africa.
And if you are watching wherever you are, you can also watch this broadcast on www.chatnightafrica.net, a brand new, stunning broadcast website. You will love what you get there. Just find out there are all kinds of things there. You will love it. You'll love it. We broadcast on that website through the rest of the entire world in high definition. You can also check us out on YouTube in high definition, quality, high resolution, if you like. We are on 4 places on Facebook and LinkedIn and so on. So please go right there, find out what we're doing. I want to thank all the donors, those who helped us build this platform to look this dazzling. When we started 4 years ago, we started on a rudimentary phone. Here we are today, reaching thousands and thousands across the world, giving testimonies and so on. So if you want to be part of this, you can reach us at chatnightafrica@gmail.com. Ladies and gentlemen, before we bring back our special guest for his closing remarks for 1 minute, I have this for you.
Chat Night Africa. 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 Africa.
Yes, we are Africa's voice to the world. Chat Night Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, for his closing remarks now, welcome once again, Mr. Mohamed Sambou, President of Grand Mouvement La Relève du Sénégal. So I want to really thank you for accepting our invitation. Typically, our questions are not very friendly. We appreciate the fact that you were up to the task. I have to say that. Very articulate, very knowledgeable. And I want to send my greetings and love to the people, beautiful people of Senegal. It's a beautiful country. I love your jollof rice, by the way. And what they call suya in Cameroon. You know the meat that they slice and put on the fire? I love it. But then, above all, I love your attire. It's so beautiful.
I will send you over once.
Oh, yeah. I need to have, this is a commitment you made. So in front of everybody, when I went to do this show, I'll say it's Mr. Sambou who sent it to me, who made it and sent it to me. Thank you. I appreciate you. So now, before we go, your last word, and you have 1 minute to do it.
Thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. One word that I would like to say is being aware for our, where we are in terms of what we need and what we have to do. You're gonna see at some point, I'm talking for the Senegalese people, and from here at Washington D.C. As a leader of the Grand Mouvement La Relève. It's going to be we're preparing something like as a group of leaders with the same vision and with the same ambition, and to change, to transform all the governments and all the way that for the moment is not working. So for the new, I will say, group that will work together in co-development. Again, Africa is suffering to work together. And even for the political parties, sometimes there is very difficult to merge and to see a group of parties being unique and to defend one project. This is what we want to do. And for the coming days, we're gonna launch the platform that we, for the moment, we are working on, just for the sake of the people, to bring all the natural resources that we have for the benefit of our people. So I would like to thank you, Mr. Divine, and for this show. It was really interactive, and the questions are really interesting. And then for all of those people that watching us all around the world, from Senegal, from the diaspora, writing some text, and I'm just telling them thank you very much for your patience. I think it lasts almost 2 hours, so we didn't see the time flying. So very good, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Mr. Divine, and hopefully I'm going to come back again.
Thank you, Mr. Sambu. It was nice having you. You can be sure that you have friends at Chat Night Africa. If there are people around Africa, wherever, doing things that are changing people's lives, please let us know. We want to take people like you, innovative thinkers like you. These are the kinds of people we want here. Talents. Did you see somebody create something? Is somebody opening an agricultural undertaking that's employing people, changing things? Let us know. My email address is chatnightafrica@gmail.com. Chatnightafrica@gmail.com. You can go on Facebook Messenger. You can message me. I'll be glad to connect with a person. Somebody connected me to Mr. Sambu. I didn't know him before. That's how we have to work, because the world has become a global village thanks to the internet. All right?
Thanks.
So, very good.
Group that I'm belonging for the moment, we have like kind of same profile that I'm going to be introduce you to for another show. Yeah, and I would like to thank Mr. Abdoulaye Sambu who done who has done the connection as well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Maintenant, à tous les peuples du Sénégal, je vous envoie mes chaleureuses félicitations, mes remerciements. My French is not very good. I love Senegalese people. We are so proud of what you are doing. You are setting the pace in Africa. Continue. You cannot afford to fail Africans. Africans are looking up to you. The day that I saw Mr. Bassirou Diomaye Faye taking over in such a peaceful transition, I almost shed tears of joy. I said, this is finally happening in Africa. See the young man. See him. Believe me. One day it could be Mr. Mohamed Sambu. I will be looking up to him with great admiration. Merci à tout le monde. Je vous aime, mais il faut que je parte. I love you, but I've got to go. I will see you again for yet another riveting conversation. Bye-bye.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back. I'm coming to get down. I'm coming to dance, We're gonna dance, we're gonna get down, we're gonna party hardy, we're gonna boogie woogie, and when we jam, it's out of sight. This song right here, it's dynamite. I'm ready. I'm coming back.